All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the Behind Enemy Line segment heading into the Week 6 game out in Vegas against the Raiders. And it's second year in a row I get to interview the esteemed Hondo Carpenter, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders, who just got out of the locker room, actually. Hondo, how are you doing?
Hey, buddy, I literally walked out so I could do this interview. So I appreciate you having me on. It's always good to be on with you. You're not only a great journalist, but a good friend. So it's good to be on with you, Jeff.
It's good to see you again, Hondo. And I got to ask first and foremost about the quarterback situation going on out in the desert with Vegas. They just are making the switch. Aiden O'Connell's getting the start. What went
Mhm.
into that decision for them to, at this point in Week 6, to say Gardner Minshew, we've seen enough. We want to see what this young guy can do.
Well, they really like him. And there were a lot of people in this building that thought Aiden O'Connell was the best quarterback. Not saying all, but there was a lot. And so Gardner just struggled. He had great completion percentage. He's a great guy. I mean, I literally just talked to him, but the turnovers were crucial. And he's a gunslinger.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with a gunslinger when you're on a team that's built to score 50 points a game. But as the Pittsburgh Steelers know, because that's not your style, it's not the Raiders style under Antonio Pierce either. And one turnover is brutal. And one of the reasons that the Raiders really turned around last season was because of the play of Aiden O'Connell. And so now they got 12 games to see what he has. They know what they saw last year, but they had a makeshift coaching staff and he performed admirably. But now with this staff, with a lot of weapons, they're going to be able to judge him for 12 games unless he just throws a bunch of interceptions, which isn't really his MO, um, to see what he has. So then going into next year, they either stick with him, sign a free agent, or go after a rookie in the draft. So it's going to be an interesting 12 weeks. Again, I've been reporting for a couple of weeks that the leash was very short on Gardner Minshew, very short. So it wasn't a surprise that it happened. And now we're going to see what the kid in his sophomore campaign has.
Now, let's talk about this matchup with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback going against the Steelers defense. The Steelers have come off back-to-back losses, but it's the way that the defense has played in those games. Go back 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco enters the game for Anthony Richardson. They spread them out, and that's exactly how I predicted the Steelers would be weak if you spread them out and attack people like Beanie Bishop, who's an undrafted rookie free agent at slot cornerback. The same methodology was brought out by Dak Prescott and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football last week, where it was an array of receivers that caught passes. It wasn't all CD Lamb. My question for you is, we know about Brock Bowers, no Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. Do they have the weapons to be able to spread the Steelers out and attack the defense the same way the last two teams have?
Yeah, it's why they're willing to let Devontae go because they are so deep. They have five quality wide receivers. I mean, quality. I've heard some rumors about, would the Raiders want to trade for George Pickens and, and try to get some more out of. I can understand, and I know that the Steelers have had interest in Devontae. I've reported all along that if it ends up being the Steelers who trade for Devontae, it'll be after this game because the Raiders weren't going to make the trade prior to the game. But at the end of the day, they've got so much depth at wide receiver. Tyreek McAllister's a rookie, Ramel Keaton, rookies, but they're both phenomenal rookies. They got Jacoby Myers, who I have reported going back to training camp, the best offensive player on this team, including Devontae. They've got Jacoby. Several teams have wanted to trade for Jacoby. The Raiders are like, we're not letting go of him. We have two WR1s. DJ Turner, tremendous speedster out of Pittsburgh. He played for my buddy Pat Narduzzi in the Panthers. DJ Turner has had a tremendous impact on this team. And then Trey Tucker, who a lot of people in Pittsburgh know because they hate the city of Cincinnati and because of Trey Tucker, the speedster who can go vertical. They understand, the Raiders do. They want to be a running football team, but they also understand they're going against a team like the Steelmen. They're going to pack the box. And so for them to run, they're going to have to pass to run. They understand that. They get that. I expect them to do a lot of the spreading it out to make the Steelers unpack the box and then to be able to run. It's going to be a good one. I'm going to tell you, though, I think the Steelers are getting the Raiders at a really bad time. After the Carolina game, there were some guys that made business decisions. I'm sure all of your fans saw what Antonio Pierce said,
Yeah.
and that's led to kind of where the Raiders are right now. This last week they lost and they were thumping the Broncos, thumping them, about to go up 17-3. Gardner Minshew throws probably the worst pass I've ever seen from an NFL quarterback, does a pick six that should have been a touchdown for the Raiders. And all of a sudden the game changed. The team collapsed. They were not mentally tough. It wasn't on coaching. And the players know that. In fact, you'll appreciate this, Jeff. In my decades of being a reporter, I've only reported 3 times where a team lost a game and the coaches were not at fault in any way. Last week was one of them. And I had multiple players thank me for saying that, saying it's totally on us. Our coaches had a great game plan. We screwed it up. And this team has responded. I just think this is not a good week for the Steelers to get the Raiders. Now, one advantage is Steeler fans are, I was down on the strip last night. Steeler fans are already in town, which doesn't surprise anyone. They may
Yeah.
travel as good as anybody in the NFL, but they're already in town. They're packing the strip. There's going to be a ton of fans. It may be more than 50% Steelers, but even if it's not, it'll be 50-50, and it's going to be loud. So it's going to nullify the crowd. But I think this is a game. If you're the Steelmen, you don't want the Raiders this week, and that's who they got.
Now, you dropped 2 Steelmen on the audience. Now, whether I don't want to see the YouTube comments, or I don't want to hear people sending me tweets, Jeff, this behind the enemy lines guest is calling them the Steelmen. What's up with that? There's a story here, and I want to let you tell why you call the Steelers the Steelmen, Hondo. So do you care to tell that for us right now?
Well, which part? Because there's some of it I can't say, but tell me the part, and then I'll elaborate on it.
Well, you had said it was one of your oh my gosh, the former coach of the Steelers who
Yeah. So
referred to them. Yeah.
George Perlis was the defensive line coach under, of course, Chuck Noll and all those Super Bowl teams. And it was on a napkin that George Perlis invented the stunt 4-3 defense, of which the Steel Curtain became so famous. George was like a second father with me, very, very close. And he used to, say, Mean Joe Green was the best football player I ever watched, but Jack Lambert, Mel Blount, they were men of steel. They were steel men. And so that's where I got that. I mean that as a term of endearment. If
Yeah.
anyone in Pittsburgh takes that as an insult, you're a moron. I mean, who doesn't want to be called a steel? Why is that funny?
Just because I don't know, just calling people morons is funny to me. I'm immature, Hondo. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, if that offends you, who doesn't want to be called a man of steel, the
Yeah, absolutely.
steel man? And when you think of the Steelers, I was visiting with Mike Tomlin at the NFL owners meeting earlier this year, and we were just kind of eating and visiting, and that man looks like a man of steel. And you look at Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll, and I
Yeah.
mean, that is a compliment to one of America's greatest cities with some of America's greatest people, the precious people of uh, Pennsylvania, and more importantly, Pittsburgh, the
Yeah.
Steelmen.
Absolutely. I wanted to give you a quick aside to be able to explain that, because I know that a lot of people might hear that and think, why is he calling him Steelman? That's why. So let's go back to the game. I want to look at it from a different perspective now. The Raiders defense, Max Crosby is obviously going to highlight that group. Robert Spillane is someone that everyone should know about with the Steelers fan base, considering his time in Pittsburgh. But my question for you, Hondo, is if from your own perspective, and as of this being recorded, there has not been anything officially made about who's going to quarterback the Steelers, Fields or what Russell Wilson. Who do you
Well,
think the
can I tell
Raiders?
you this? Can
Sure.
I'll give you a little bit of, I don't know if it's breaking or not, but in this building, they're all talking about Justin Fields. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
would
say
I would
this right.
expect that.
I'm going to say this right now. Personally the respect I have for Mike Tomlin. I believe that Andy Reid's the best coach in the NFL, and I think Mike Tomlin is 1B. That's how much I respect Mike Tomlin. There, anyone that remotely thinks they're going to go to Russell Wilson. I was told this today by an NFL executive. the Steelmen, well, they call them the Steelers, but the Steelers have to make a decision because it's a lot of money to pick up a fifth-year option on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
They've got to make a decision on the future. Is he our future or not? I don't care if Russell plays this year and next year. He's not your future.
Right.
And anyone that thinks they're going to go to Russell, I probably got offended that I gave you the compliment of the Steelman. But no, there's no preparation here
That's
um,
interesting. That's
at
interesting.
all for Russell Wilson. When I talk to people around the NFL, they all think it's going to be Justin. In fact, I was told by an NFL executive today, if they don't start Justin, then I don't think he's coming back, because if you think there's any chance that that guy's your future, you're not taking him out.
Right.
But I can tell you here, I just got done talking to Max Crosby seconds ago. I walked out of his office to his desk, I mean, his locker to come here. And he was talking about, yeah, we're planning on Russell Wilson. I mean, we're planning on Justin Fields. That's the whole mindset. I don't think anyone that looks at these last two games that they lost is putting that on Fields. I think you can look at some plays where he certainly didn't help, but to put it all on him, I mean, here's the deal. When it comes to pro football, Raiders and Steelers have the two most intelligent fan bases. I'll tell you a great story. I was in, I was there at the game at Heinz Field when it was Jerome Bettis's last game. You guys played the Lions, if you
Yep.
remember that. And I was visiting with the boss and his mom and his family in the bowels. They were waiting to leave the stadium, and we were just visiting. And I'm from Michigan. I was covering the Lions at the time, and we were talking about the fans. And he probably spent 20 minutes talking about how much he loved and appreciated how smart the fans were. How, he went through a little bit of a time, and somebody was talking about planting his foot, and Raider fans, Steeler fans are cut from the same cloth. They're blue collar people. They love the game. They know the game. Uh, I'm literally eating dinner the other night, and I probably had a lady close to 90. I mean, come up and want to talk about the hand movement where Minshew's putting his hands on the ball, all that kind of stuff. They're those kind of fans.
Yeah.
And I think um, if you think there is any chance Russell Wilson, excuse me, that Justin Fields is your future, it would be foolish. I mean, this is a road game, but it's going to be close to a home game. It would be foolish to make that move. And I think you just stick with Justin, you ride with Justin. Now, the moment you think he's not out,
Yeah.
then you go to Russ. But Russ is not your future. Let me be your death angel to the Russell Wilson group. He's not going to be quarterbacking your team in 10 years. Justin Fields could.
That's right. Now, the Raiders in the locker room that are talking about Justin Fields, when they approach this as a challenge, how are they viewing that? Because he like you said, last game, not the best. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best. How are they viewing Justin Fields and the Steelers offense, which has struggled again to put points on the board?
Well, I think that's been common trait for the Steelmen for a long time, is that.
Yes.
But first of all, tremendous respect for Justin Fields. And I've known him going back to high school. What a great kid, good kid. He's a very good football player. He's adapting, he's growing. Um, Chicago under that leadership's where quarterbacks go to die. I mean, Caleb, look at the struggles that Caleb's had to go through. I think he's finally getting some good coaching. Thank God he doesn't have your previous offensive coordinator, Matt. Please send me off to coach in Canada. Um, but I just think that, he's a young kid that has to go through the maturation process. But better for the Steelmen to put him through that process, and at the end of it say, hey, this is our guy. I mean, there were people in Green Bay last year that wanted Jordan Love benched. And then by the time of the end of the year came, they're giving him massive bank. Well, the people that wanted him fired looked pretty stupid, because young kids got to grow.
Yeah.
That's something that fans in today's modern NFL don't get. I'll give you an example. The Raiders took a kid out of Maryland named Jacorian Bennett last year, and he struggled, had a crisis of confidence. And I kept reporting all offseason how the Raiders loved him. that he was going to be coming along. This is a great player. I can't even tell you what people said about me and to me about it. And now he's one of the best corners in all the National Football League this year. He's playing out of his mind. And people sometimes don't understand, guys, there's a maturation process, there's a growth process. And I think there is so much respect. Now, there's respect for Russell, too. I'm not pretending there isn't, although he's never beat the Raiders when he was with the Broncos, but the Broncos didn't beat anybody when they had him. But at the end of the day, I think there's a ton of respect for Justin. He's a weapon. He's dangerous. He's smart. He's just a young guy growing. And I'm big on Justin Fields. And I know there's a ton of respect here for both your quarterbacks, but there's a lot. Justin Fields poses a lot more problems than Russell Wilson.
I agree with that. Now let's get your final thoughts here about this game. You said that it might be a bad week for the Steelers to face the Raiders, and you gave a multitude of reasons. It is a road game for the Steelers. It's their 4th in 6 games. They've been on the road a lot. How do you see this game playing out? I don't need a score prediction or anything like that, but if you had to think about the week of prep so far that you've seen from the Raiders, how do you see this thing playing out?
Very impressive. Very impressive. And because the game was an absolute disaster, dumpster fire. But I would say this to you, Jeff. I have so much respect for Tomlin. And I mean, I just admire him personally and professionally. I have so much respect for that organization and what that organization does. But they don't have weapons.
Yeah.
And I've got friends that play on the team. Shout out to my guys. I have friends that work in the organization, guys that are, on your staff. And so there's no weapons. It's why if I'm them, I love the idea of going to get a Devontae Adams. But at the end of the day, I think they catch a tiger by the tail. And I think, the Raiders, but either way, I don't care who wins. Nobody's going to blow it out. I think it's a race to 21, and I don't even think it gets there. I'm going to say like a 2017 game.
Okay. Very good. Hondo, I want to give you the opportunity to plug not just what you do for Fans First Sports Network on the podcast side, but also the written word for Sports Illustrated. If you want to do that, go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, you can go to si.com/NFL/Raiders. Get all of our content. We do anywhere from 15 to 20 pieces of content every single day. It's 100% free. And this is a great week to get a lot of information on your Steelers. We just talked to Robert Spillane. We're going to have that interview up tomorrow morning. It'll go up, I'm going to guess, somewhere around 8:30 Eastern time. Let me tell you, what a gift the Steelers let him go. He has gotten here and been nothing but a superstar, got totally screwed out of being a member of the Pro Bowl last year. He is a backbone along with Max Crosby. Wonderful guy. I've known him a long time. I knew him back when he was in college at Western Michigan. And I got to tell you what's interesting. Ever since he's got here, he's done nothing but praise the entire organization, how much he loved it. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to be there. And, the the Steelers were just kind of in a tight spot. And the Raiders were willing to come in and pay more because they thought he was worth it. And thank you very much. Hats off to the Steelers for letting him go, because I'll tell you what, it's phenomenal. But what I love about him, and I've shared this with you, Jeff, since he got here, is he's not one of these guys, man, I hate them, they let me go. It's, man, I love them. They did so much to help me. I love their fans. I mean, he's talked to me 2 or 3 times about their fans and about how amazing they are. He said to me one time, he goes, I can't believe I had the privilege of playing for the Steeler fans and now getting to play for Raider fans. They're just cut out of that same cloth. They're rabid. It's really fun listening to him talk about an organization that made him wealthy, and not with a did they disrespected me. It's a sense of pride that he was one of you. And I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Hondo, I thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the game, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Take it easy.
Thanks, buddy.